And we are live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of My Eye is on Fire. Another episode of Movie Cast, where I am your host, Dana, and I am speaking to Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How are you doing, good sir?
Doing good, Dana. What's up, listeners and viewers?
Good, yes, good day, and happy listening, viewers and everyone. We will be talking about 28 days, 28 years. I confuse days and years. We will be talking about years later, which
Yes.
is a the follow up to not 28, not just 28 days later, but 28 weeks later. This is the third in the trilogy. There will be, well, it's the first in the trilogy, but it's it's an extension. The point that I'm simply saying is we will be discussing about this movie, whether or not we loved it, hated it, couldn't stand it, and of course that wonderful ending where, of course, I am Go Go Power Rangers, and he is just a regular editor who's about to be swooped up in the Go-Go Power Rangers cult.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
let's just basically talk about, what our first reactions when we saw this movie. Mr. Richard?
Well, first and foremost, let me just say this. I want to mention this. Before I saw the movie, there was a lot of high praise of the movie. I've seen quotes, people talking about it's one of the best movies in the entire the series that they've made so far. So, I mean, I already wanted to see the movie because I saw the first two movies. I really enjoyed 28 Days Later. I thought 28 Weeks Later was okay. So going into this movie, I already knew what to expect. And I also knew that they were making another trilogy because when the news came out about this movie, it was also saying, yeah, they shot the next one back to back. So looking forward to that. But sticking with this movie, my initial first reactions, I thought it was a very good movie. Um, I don't think it was amazing or groundbreaking like the critics have said, but I thought it was a very good movie. The story itself was great, a very emotional story for those. And like I said, we're going to get into all that stuff here, which I thought was very important. I like the characters that they've introduced us to. I also think it was very creative how they did this movie, where it started and you are introduced to one character and then you see who that character is at the end of the movie. And that made me curious to see. I need to see that next movie because I like that actor a lot. I'm curious to know about what that character went through after all the stuff that happened to him in the beginning of the movie. So yeah, but overall, I thought it was a great movie. The I guess you could say the zombies, the creatures, that was fantastic. The way they had those, and they look very, and of course that those alpha characters, very intimidating. That was very scary. I would not want to be chased by any one of them. So they did an outstanding job with that. But no, I thought it was a great movie. My initial first thoughts of a great movie for sure.
For me, I had like a mixed reaction. I, at first, kind of hated it. I found it to be very jarring. I was confused. The editing with the kill shots drove me insane. Um, and the first cut, I had to get acclimated into it because at first I was like, "What is this?" It didn't have the exact. It had the tone of 28 days later, but it just didn't have that same kind of texture and feel. It felt like everything was going at 1,000%, and all I looked at was next thing there was a man's ding dong about this big, just flopping around. And I was just so confused. But once I locked in, and I locked in with that scene where they was trying to run across the water, and Alpha was chasing them in the water, and they was trying to get inside from that Alpha, and then all of the arrows started coming. Then I was like, "Oh, wait! Now let me pay attention and watch." This was amazing. Now I know you're like meh, and I can understand the madness, but for me, I thought it was so exceptional on just not just a filmmaking level, but a storytelling level, and how it evolved from the first movie that was what released over 20, I don't know how many years ago, but a very long time. It was less than 28 years, but still, it was like a very long time, probably 20 something. I can't do math. But the point that I'm saying is, I felt that it evolved exceptionally well. And I loved the characters, and I loved everything for what it stood for. And I know the big argument of the end is the ending, not just the ending itself, but the tonal shift of the end, where you get this big emotional moment with this boy kind of letting go of his mother. And then next thing you know, it's literally go go Power Rangers morphing into action and just killing everyone. And once you realize who the leader of the group is and a connection to who he was in the very beginning, you're just like, whoa, wait, what? So for me, it felt like every scene had a meaning and a purpose. Even the fact of the alphas. Then you had the fact of the zombies being able to reproduce and to procreate. Even if it's through rape, you're procreating. So everyone's evolving, as well as the human characters. Um, of course, I thought Cillian Murphy was going to be there. He was not in there. And no, that zombie is not him. I don't know why everyone thought it was him. It literally made no sense whatsoever. And even if it was going to be him, that would have been such a big spoiler. Like, why would they release that in the trailer? But then at the same time, Marvel released the whole X-Men scene from the trailer. What was it? Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. But the point I'm making is, it just didn't make any sense for that to be him. But I genuinely love this movie. So we're gonna just kind of get into the nibbly bits of it, where, that very first scene where I thought it was like, oh, we're just showing the brutality of, religion and psychosis of religion. And it was that opening scene, which actually plays a point. The opening scene of the basically the father is in this euphoric mental space where he lets it all the zombies are coming in, and he's like, yes, yes, and they all destroy him and eat him, and you have this boy who is able to escape, and kind of the madness of that. So what did so to me, that was like it was very jarring, but it kind of set the tone of where it was at in 28 years. And so what I wanted to know is that, and then of course we have children kind of really ran this thing here. There was that other scene where it came to the kids, a bunch of kids in the house watching Teletubbies. And here comes the zombie attack where everyone died but that one kid. So what was your thought? Because they just really didn't care in this movie. You was gonna get got no matter what. Kid, newborn, doesn't matter. What was your initial thoughts on basically no one was really spared, but the kids by coincidence, and how that impacted how they grew up?
So I thought that was a very strong opening for the movie. It gave me callbacks to the other movies because, again, things happen very quickly. As we saw from the first movie, it progressed very, 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 very rapidly. So, I think they did an excellent job as far as opening up with Jimmy, showing you a little bit of his childhood where he was in the room with the kids, and then all of this chaos happens. And then, of course, he's running to the church to see his father. That's when his father gives him the cross, and then he tells him, I believe he says something about have no fear or something like that. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I think it set the tone so much so that after I saw him get that cross and escape, I thought, okay, so when they go to the present day, I actually thought that he was maybe the father. That's what I thought. So that's why I said they did an excellent job with introducing this character. But then, of course, it's revealed later, okay, no, he's somebody else. But no, in terms of how they opened it, they show the very jarring and disturbing nature. And again, the thing about is, as this thing was spreading, you saw how quickly it was infecting other people. Like when you saw the scene of his father, it literally like seconds later he was
It was
infected with the blood. Yeah, it's just the blood coming out the eyes. Very disturbing images, but that just shows you how dangerous it is when you do get infected. And then throughout the entire movie, anytime somebody got attacked and they started vomiting up the stuff, it happened so quickly. So it shows you how quickly it can spread. And they needed to show it to remind people. I think for those who are coming into this movie for the first time, it's a reminder of what you are in for, to let you know how deadly this thing is. So for people who are also new to it, it's a good thing for them to see that too. So I think they did a fantastic job with the opening. Very unsettling, and it made me worry about, well, what's going to happen to that kid. So
we get into the big main characters, which are Aaron Taylor Johnson, and that lovely boy whose name I can't remember, along with Jamie Comer, who are basically father, son, mother. Jamie, the mother, is inflicted by what we think is some kind of horrible something. At first I'm like, oh, it's a zombie attack, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, because you get it, like you said, in the matter, it's 10 seconds actually, because remember in the first one when those monkeys started attacking the people who were trying to free them, and they bit them, and it was 10 seconds later. So yes, so we had that in the whole situation with the family, and the whole thing was very simple. It was just basically a father and son trying to bond, and him teaching him how to hunt. He is at that age now where he has to hunt, and of course that's where everything goes completely haywire and chaotic. What were your thoughts on not just the depiction of those characters, but the father and son bond of them trying to go hunt? He's teaching them about the zombies, and then of course they encounter Alpha, which causes a huge change of plans with everything. I didn't even know there was an Alpha. That also is an evolution too.
So, okay, now let me go ahead and say this right now. That is actually one of the things I really did like about the movie, because obviously for the last several years, I've been watching a whole bunch of other zombie shows and movies, The Last of Us, as well as, The Walking Dead, which is a series that needs to end. And when I see how they have an opportunity to evolve and show different versions of a zombie, they always disappoint with how they present these other type of variations. So going back to the first and foremost with the Alpha thing, I thought that was fantastic. Like I said, it's a very menacing, jarring, this huge, muscular type creature that is smarter than and faster than the others. And I think that was important to establish that, because it lets you know that there is they do evolve, and the ones that evolve are more dangerous than just the regular ones. So, but to go back to the story of, because I believe the father's name is Jamie, the kid's name is Spike, the mother's name is Isla. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm a huge fan of Aaron Taylor. Okay, I saw that horrible movie that he made last year called what is it? The Marvel villain. I can't think of it. So Kraven the Hunter.
You wanted to win an Oscar.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But when I saw this movie, I'm like, this guy is a phenomenal actor. He was also in that Bullet Train movie as well. Anything that he's been in, of course, Kick-Ass. Anything that he's in, I like him. I support him as an actor. That's why I was very disappointed when I saw the Kraven movie, because I'm like, this guy deserves so much better than that garbage. Even though and the thing is, he didn't do a bad job in the movie. It's just the story and all this other stuff is all over the place. But to see him in this movie, I thought this was great when I saw the trailer. And then obviously when they introduced this story about the family, I thought all that was very well done in terms of telling another story, because one of the things about these shows, such as The Walking Dead, is when they show like there's a major event that happens and you're seeing other sides to the story of how that event impacted others, or how they are living life now because everything is chaotic. I think that is one of the strengths that these writers and directors have when they're telling these stories, that you can have multiple stories with different perspectives. So I like this story about the family that was off-site. And you mentioned earlier about how they got to the mainland with their whole land, the whole the bridge, so to speak, that is only there for when the tide rises and stuff. Uh, that was fantastic concept. The way they shot that, when you see the overhead shot, when it parts, when they're able to walk, all of that was very well done. I like how they told that story. But the whole thing about basically, as his son is getting older, he's trying to teach him about hunting. The thing is, I already knew, though, when they went on that hunting trip, it was never going to be, we're going to go out successfully and then there's no issue whatsoever. You already know as a viewer, this is not how these movies go. There's going to be some type of thing they run into that they didn't anticipate. And again, we saw as he was teaching his son how to hunt, I think the first creature they killed was the one that was on the ground that was pulling themselves towards them. But again, there were moments in this where you can see the creature lurking from behind. The other character can't see, so you're like, "Uh-oh, well that's something to worry about." By the way, that what I just said, that applies to another movie as well that we might be talking about in the future on this channel. So stay tuned. But that tactic is used in multiple movies where there's something in the background, you can't see it, and then it's good. It's good tension. But no, they dealt with that. Then, of course, they went into that house where there was a infected individual hanging upside down, and he got free. And Spike almost did what, that was very close. The father's like, hey, you need to be quicker than that. And then, of course, they get into the issue with the alpha. And at that point, that's where I was wondering, okay, what is the strategy here? Because you genuinely felt like, okay, this is not going to end well for them when they had to get into that house because he had a whole bunch of the other creatures that were also coming after him. But they just waited until the morning time, and then they made their way back. And then they had that whole scene about the alpha finding them and trying to run back. Yeah, I thought that was great. It created a lot of tension. So they did a fantastic job with all of that. The side story, however, and we will get into that, about how Jamie is not really a good husband. Very interesting part in this story. We will have to get into that. But no, overall, how that started, how they introduced his family, very well done. Obviously, as you saw that Isla, the mother, she was in bad health. I believe when they showed her from the very beginning, she was drinking the night before. So, but I didn't, as someone coming into the movie, I didn't know what they were doing with the character. So I obviously was concerned what's going on with her. But no, the way they introduced everything up to that point, and then their whole expedition, excellent. I thought that was great.
I completely agree with you. And, it's a huge, like I said, a lot of evolution to when it came to the first one. They were one of the things that it always caught me was that the zombies could run as fast as humans. Because remember, it was the rage that they were filled with. That fueled them, empowered them. And I thought, remember in the original, that you could also contract it through getting the blood in your eye. So I thought that, again, so these were kind of like just perchance situations where you saw this now, especially with Alpha, that they're very strategic. It's not like, oh, you ran away. Okay, let me go walk somewhere else. They sit there and they wait. They have a strategy, just like, look, at this time, he's going to run this part. I need you to run over here. You can go over there. Let's try to fan out and go at all angles. And so that's the part that I really loved about that as well. And then, kind of going off with that, it's always a coming of age story. And it just depends on, no matter the setting, it is a coming of age story. But what I do like about that is that the environment that they used was very unique in terms of it being in a zombie, literally run for your life survival movie. And the story itself is not unique in terms of, you always place somebody in a weird situation. For example, we saw 40 Acres, and that was like post-apocalyptic. But it was how they were able to use the space that really was fascinating. This was a town that, well, not just a town, but this was a part of the UK that was basically isolated. Everyone else was like, okay, we're good. Thanks. We're not going to help you because that is the infected area. So you're literally on your own to your own devices. So it's not like, let me go call the police and he's going to come in and the helicopter's going to come and swoop me away. So I love the pure isolation feeling. And then, of course, it's like 28 years later where, there's the use of agriculture. There is a use of that space, which is basically run over now because, life is not thriving as it once was. You can't go out and let me go farm and whack the weeds, that kind of situation. So it was able to use the environment very well. And of course, we'll get to the end part when I kind of the bone skull collection. But I did appreciate that aspect of it. And what was also fascinating was during those scenes, remember how they would be intercut with random footage that from like say, here's a blink of the war that already happened. Here's a blink of, I don't know, Churchill, something like random. And I was like, this to me, it was like at first why I didn't lock in. I'm like, this is stupid, but actually was really smart. Because if you notice that the things that they were playing were kind of associated with the rise and falls of society. So I think when there was a moment when they were being attacked by the Alpha, that it cut to, I want to say, kind of the Hitler thing and the marches. Then there was the bells. I call it the Blitz. It's called it's much more bigger, but it's basically World War II with firebombing and stuff. And so it gave you kind of that sense of the UK has been through a lot of rise and fall, as well as other countries. And it is how they have always fall and decided to rise back up that I thought was really interesting. So it really played a lot on how the history can kind of not just dictate the future, but can give you perspective on your present and the future. So I really did love that moment. And then, of course, like we were talking about previously, about that whole church scene. We do know, come later on, religion plays a huge part in this. And so there's that lonely cross. Yay. And then we'll get into the actual true meaning of who that guy actually was supposed to be, which is very disturbing and disgusting. But yes, so he, as you were saying, the father is a terrible husband. We learned that he has been basically cheating on his wife. He's a hoe. And the father, not the father, the son overhears this and he runs away. And the whole goal is and I'm skipping some parts because it was a whole doctor who he believes that can cure her. The point is that he is trying to not only just save his mother, but he no longer trusts his father. And that aspect to me was fascinating, yes.
And I was just going to say, because you were talking about the editing, because when Jamie and Spike were leaving, they had a montage of other people in the village, and they actually showed that teacher that he messed around with. I'm like, why? So why did they show this character? And then I got the answer later. Oh, because that's who he was messing around with. Very creative with the editing.
Yeah.
But continue.
Sorry, no, I completely love the editing when it came to this. But yeah, and then it was when we get the true powerhouse of the mom, Jamie, with Isla. Sorry. So the whole trek of trying to get her into some kind of cure, because this boy believed that a doctor can cure her. What did you think about not just their bond, but the relationship throughout the entire trek? Because what was supposed to be a father-son bonding coming of age story ends up becoming a son and mother coming of age bonding experience. And they just left the father. I'm like, oh my.
Oh yeah. Well, I knew that he would be. I knew he was going to be angry at his father. We saw the reaction he had, and then he just left. I thought it was interesting how Jamie did not attempt to go after him until much later, after all this stuff happened. We didn't see any scene of him asking questions about what happened with his son or his wife. So very interesting. But like you said, the story, the coming of age story. But also the sad part is it also is a farewell story for the mother, because when we do find out she has a terminal illness. The only thing that I had questions about, obviously there was a scene that happened where they were staying somewhere and, it was overnight. And again, one of those creatures was coming towards Spike. And then they had a sequence where you saw the mother didn't really remember it. When we saw her get up and basically bash the creature's head against the thing, that's why I was like, oh, so I was a little confused about that. Obviously, the instincts to protect the son, I understand that, but she's also sick, so I was a little. That's why I wasn't sure what was going on with her when I saw that scene. But then we also saw she had continued to have the nosebleeds as well. And again, I thought it was important because, he is the only one. Yeah, he loved his mom. So that's why it is a very heartfelt story in those regards. And again, he was the only one that believed that there could be a cure, that the doctor could tell him that. And of course, as he finds out later, well, it's not quite, this is not going to be as easy as you think. It's not really a solution for this type of disease. So definitely very sad. When I saw it in the theater, a lot of people was, that got to them. That was as it was intended. And of course, the bone collector, who we find out more about in this movie as well. I think the whole thing about this particular scene, this image you have right now at the back, where the kid goes to the top and puts his mom's skull at the top. Yeah, that was very emotional. Very emotional. Yeah, but again, I thought they did a great job telling that story. I think a lot of people were surprised it would take an emotional turn because, again, when this movie started out, I thought it was going to be about the father and the son. And to be quite honest, I thought something was going to happen to Jamie and that he gets killed or something like that. Now, that could still happen in this in the other movies. That could happen. But I thought that's what this was going to be. So when they came back after that expedition, that was when I was curious, okay, where are they going with this? Because I thought that expedition was going to be the entirety of the movie, them going out there and then having all of these adventures and stuff like that. So, but I do like what they did instead, to focus on the mom, because again, that actress has been in a lot of other things. She did a phenomenal job. So I'm glad they focused on her and what she brought to the story as the mother.
I was shocked that they were going to make it a mother and son. I thought once he took off running, it was going to just be about him and trying to survive. So I'm very happy that he incorporated the mother. What was your thoughts on basically the bone temple? But you said that you liked it because it was a lot. It was a mixture for me. It was like, wow, those are all the skulls that those are like dead people. All the skulls that he collected. But at the same time, you can make the argument of kind of sweet ritual where, it disinfected through fire the bodies, and it was kind of like a tribute wall to those who have passed. But at the same time, maybe it's a warning.
Yeah, I mean, because I understand why Jamie did not want to, when they had the scene of when he saw the guy. I understand why he didn't want to approach that, because it can look very jarring to see that. You think that this guy is killing people and collecting their skulls. I understand that's very unsettling to think that. So I think I could see that. In terms of the explanation about the character, it is an interesting character. Again, a doctor who does try to help people. I like the fact that he's able to subdue the creatures for a period of time because he had the interaction with the alpha. However, later in this movie, when that alpha came back, I thought he was going to kill him at that point. So he got very lucky that Spike saved him, because old boy was about to get infected. That was very close, very close. But in terms of them introducing the character, I don't believe his story is over, because I think that the next movie coming out is called The Bone Temple. So I think we are going to see that character again. To what extent, I don't really know, but we are going to see him again. And again, another phenomenal actor. So I don't mind seeing them expand upon his story more. But I thought, in terms of the explanation of this character, I thought that was interesting. I do want to make a comment. When I made the comment earlier that I thought the movie was great, I didn't think it was amazing, I made that comment because the story is not over for me. The story, this is a trilogy, so when I saw, again, we'll get into what happened later, but it clearly, this particular story was excellent. It was great. Okay, this is a great movie. But I know, as a fan like you, I need to see Cillian Murphy back in this franchise. I knew he wasn't going to be in this one. He's in the next one. They confirmed that. He did play some type of producer or director credit on this one. So he was involved with it, but he's not in it. And again, as a fan, I want to see that character return, because I want to see how they're going to connect him to these other characters that they've introduced. So that is what I'm curious about. But that doesn't mean this was a bad movie. I thought it was a very good movie. I just wanted to clarify that. But no, continue.
No, also that I thought was really interesting. There was a lot of symbolism that I felt. I could be going into this way too much deeply, but with Dr. Kelson, who's the guy who is responsible for the whole bone temple situation, I thought it was fascinating that he was the one that other people feared, because it gave the perspective that he was running around killing people, burning their skulls, and then making a whole temple out of it. So it plays a huge part on perspective. Well, we thought that Dr. Ian was, sorry, some kind of villain-ish character that could be and kill this boy. Sorry, so sorry. Compared to, yes. Oh, hold on.
You good? Yes. Let me just say a few things while you say, yeah, Dr. Kelson. Yeah, you said people will fear. They feared him. I mean, I thought that was interesting that I thought it was interesting they feared him. I thought that was pretty. I understand why they would fear him.
Yeah, because remember they was like, one guy was like, they don't know what's going on. These burning bodies over there. It could be some kind of voodoo or ritual that he's into. It was very fascinating for me. Was that trying to go on about what you were saying about perspectives. This is what people assume he is, but in actuality, it's not at all. And he had a lot of knowledge, and he was very helpful. Of course, we don't know what his end game is, but he was very helpful to the boy, and in a way, assisted with his mother's kind of death. And it was there for him. He had to experience it, and I think it was a very beautiful moment of the boy climbing up the temple or the mound of skulls. It was very beautiful, and it was a way to honor his mother. So that was great. And then also kind of to go on that, when it came to perspectives, as a son, you think your father is Captain Everything. You think that you're part of a loving family with his wife, and to see him actually go about kissing this other woman and essentially being like, oh, he doesn't care about us at all. Look at what he's really doing. So that completely changes perspective on things. And it also shifted, I believe, in a way, we don't know how this ends, but you can make it the argument that it shifted his life in terms of, he does shift his life in terms of this movie, and kind of the other movies before has always been about, well, this is your fate. This is what you got to do. But the boy kind of was like, screw that. I'm going to run, and we're going to change our destinies. I'm going to get you help. We're going to find another place that's kind of freedom for both of us. You can make the argument he switches from he's still a boy, but the mentality switches into the protector. So in a way, it switches to that man mentality of, I'm here to save you. I'm going to protect you. We're going to cure you. So that was a huge different shift in that. And I really did love that aspect of it. But overall, that whole thing, and Jamie Comer played it really nice. It was beautiful. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you about that is also considered a little bit controversial was, what did you think about that birth scene?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. Very graphic, right? Clearly, and the thing is, the woman was infected, right? She was infected. The baby was not infected. Now, I will admit now, obviously, because I know you. When we typically do these reviews, you may see a show and you say, I don't mind if they kill off a lot of characters or all these other characters. I will say this. I was very surprised at the end when Spike left the baby and the baby is perfectly fine. I thought to myself, that baby is infected, and this is how it spreads to that entire, area. That did not happen. because I thought, this is but I definitely would like an explanation as to why the baby wasn't infected. I don't know if that's something that they would address in the future, because I feel like when the person gets infected, then obviously the rage virus runs rampant through their body. So I would think that it would impact other parts of their body. I mean, I don't know, but I that was the one thing I didn't really understand, because I figured the baby had to have something, because they've had other shows where somebody gets something and then the baby doesn't have it, or they have some. I mean, so I understand that, but the scene itself was graphic. I knew that that guy was going to kill her right after it happened, though. I saw that coming, because that character, and I guess that character, you could say he was a bit of he was a douchebag type of character, some type of comic relief. There were some people laughing about the character when my screening, they're laughing, this army guy. Obviously, he did save Spike and his mom earlier in the movie. But yeah, I knew two things. Number one, I knew after she gave birth, she was going to turn and he was going to kill her. And I also knew that he would get killed. I didn't know if it was going to be by the Alpha. That was the only surprise, because I didn't see the Alpha. I didn't see the Alpha until I heard the Alpha. I said, all right, yeah, he's done. But when they had the scene where he's like, hey, why did you do that? And he's stepping away. I knew at that point, he about to get killed. And of course, that did not disappoint. They took his head off, took his head clean off. Very graphic, very graphic. I know that was probably a little too much for you to see, though, because very, very, very violent, Mortal Kombat style type of executions.
I thought that there was an importance in that, because it showed, this has been years later, how it is able to evolve. And I think in a way, yes, we've seen kind of the animalistic side of the virus, but we're seeing how they're able, like I stated before, how they're able to think and strategize. And when the woman, the whole pregnancy situation, when she was giving birth, it was interesting that she calmed down. She was very docile. It wasn't like, it was like a very calm, kind of peaceful moment, even though it was fleeting. And then the baby coming out perfectly fine, to me, I feel is the evolution of the virus. It takes a while to get out, but it doesn't pass from generation to generation. And if you was to make the argument, those 28 years or however long it was been since the first movie of 28 days, I feel that they didn't have really a next generation, or never really focused on the next generation. Because I don't know what was popping off with the pregnant women who were infected in 28 days or even 28 weeks. We never saw that. At least I'm not remembering. We didn't really see that depicted. And if I see a zombie, even if they are pregnant, running after me, your first intentions is just to kill. It's not like, oh, she's pregnant, let me think about it. This was the first time that anyone actually encountered one giving birth. And so I believe it's kind of similar to what we saw with a lot of STD viruses. I'm not comparing it to, but making the argument of, remember how AIDS, how you can have AIDS and contract it, but they were starting to notice that it doesn't affect the child. Some does and some didn't. So I kind of found that to be really interesting. And I do hope that when we get to, not maybe Boneton, because we are going to see that baby again. It made that very
You think so?
clear.
Oh yeah,
yes,
because the baby got left at the house. Yeah, left back at the village.
Remember when he named the baby? He named it after his mom. And he left the note that was like, "Here's the baby's origins," and basically said, "I'm going to return when everybody's ready, when I'm ready, when the baby's ready." So that's going to be some time. Whether we get that in Bone Temple or even in the third movie, he's coming back for that baby. So maybe that's a whole spoiler. Was like, oh, he's going to live through the whole thing. But he's going to see that baby again. And I found that to be interesting because remember, it was him. He was explaining what happened. He was saying he was going to return. And then Spike was like, wait, what? What's going on? He tried to go after Jamie. And I thought it was really interesting that it was
Oh no,
like,
you mean
no, it was right. It felt like I'm the man now kind of voice. I'm the
yeah.
man who has the courage to do what's right.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's interesting because he's a boy saying, I'm coming back when I'm a man to be a father to that child, the father that you couldn't be because you was basically a hoe.
Oh,
So I
whoa, whoa,
love that.
whoa.
He's a
Oh yeah.
hoe. Who say that was the only woman he kissed and growing up on? And his wife is sick with cancer? How
Yeah,
raggedy
terrible.
are you?
And
Which
that's
also,
why that's why I say, I do like the actor. I was very disappointed that they would make the character that way, though, because everything about the character, the way they presented him, I was okay with that. But then up until I saw, oh, so he's messing around with his wife, that's not good. One quick thing I do want to mention, though, real quick, and then I'll go back to your point because you were talking about the pregnant zombie. Did you notice how very casually, when the alpha came onto the train and was coming after them, he looked back at her, the fact that she was dead now. I paid attention to that because, again, that's like, I don't know if that was the person that was who she. Yeah. That's why I paid attention to that. I was like, okay, so yeah, like you said, they do acknowledge certain things, but they still are very much infected by the rage virus. So,
right?
No, continue.
And remember,
continue what you was gonna say.
He seemed to be hurt because she was killed. And remember, he rips. I'm not sure how we're going to think he ripped the dude's head off. He beheaded him.
Yeah. It was a Mortal Kombat fatality.
Right. So you can make the argument that he, in a way, I don't know if he was trying to protect her or trying to say, hey, that's my boo and my baby.
Yeah.
Or, to say, get away from us in general. But he did kill her. And it was interesting that it wasn't like, I'm going to fight you for this baby. It wasn't that at all. So I'm wondering subconsciously, because they do have a conscience now, is he realizing, one, that they're better, that the baby is better off with the humans because it came out as a human. And he subconsciously knows that. Or if it's like, all right, I see you, but I'm going to come back for that baby too. So then we get the clash of Alpha and Jamie as the adult with the child.
That's a good point. I was going to say that Alpha is definitely coming back because they didn't get killed. They just got subdued. And, he got subdued at the end the same way he did when the doctor, did it the first time. Jamie did it the second time. That Alpha is definitely coming back in the next movie. So he's coming after to collect, maybe coming after the doctor. You never know. We have to wait and see, but he's definitely coming back. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I don't see the doctor lasting long. But I do hope. I just think we call bone temple. They're just basically telling me, hey, we're going to continue this also kind of what you're doing, and this might kill you off. But yeah, so that was fascinating. And then another thing, I may be reaching here, but I found it fascinating that the mom, Isla, she died. She had cancer, which is a mutation. And we're in a movie about mutations. Yay. So not yay, but still. And then kind of going back about difference about choosing your own destiny as opposed to letting fate take a hold of you. It was interesting that she didn't just die. She requested to die. Just, the whole please kill me situation. So I love that as well. Of her taking her life in her own hand, saying, I don't want to do this anymore. Even though she knows she has a son. She's basically, she can't be there for him like she could if she was, 1,000%. And so that was tragic because I really wanted to see more of Jamie. But we gotta talk about that big old ending. That big old divisive ending that people were like,
divisive, really? Okay, I gotta hear this. Yeah.
They're angry. They're angry. Not even angry, just hungry. So, as you know, after he went to go and dropped off the baby, and he's still somber and sad. Now remember, this is an emotionally sad moment. The infected zombies are coming after him again. So he doesn't really get a moment to just breathe. And at the moment when he thinks, this is the end for me, here comes an entire gang of people in a form of the Power Rangers, with the leader as adult Jimmy wearing that same cross.
Mm-hmm.
The upside down crucifix, which is very important because right side up is much different than upside down. And the importance, the fact that he is stylized after a real person called Jimmy Savile, which I'm probably mispronouncing. But that is a real life piece of poop person from the UK who was a TV host. You didn't know about this? He was a very, very famous TV host that was basically one of the largest child abuse that he was doing in the state. Oh, sorry, the country of the UK. There were hundreds of victims. And it's very particular to the UK because I'm like, who is this dude? And it is disgusting of what happened. And people knew because you don't just victimize hundreds of kids and no one knows anything. But people knew. And so you have him coming in as basically Captain Save-A-Ho, killing all the zombies and being the savior and like, woo. But he is in fact a cult leader. That whole thing was a cult leader about your, who you think is going to save you may actually be your downfall. So what did you think about that whole scene? People thought that it was a completely different tonal shift. They thought it was too funny. They did not like it.
Oh, really?
I loved it because of
yeah.
Oh, they hated it.
Well, let me confess right now here on this show as we are recording, I did not know that this was based on a character, the actual person that exists. And I also did not know about the type of individual that it is based off. So now I would say that is very disturbing considering Spike is now, he's going to have to deal with this individual. That is very concerning. And I could understand why people would be like, I don't know if I like where they're going with this. When I saw the scene, I thought it was comical how they just really made quick work of those zombies, and they were just trying to make it like a very little fun exercise. That's why I said, well, they definitely will not be successful like that if they're going up against the alpha, because that alpha will be a challenge. And you can't just treat that as just a normal zombie. But when I saw it, obviously Jack O'Connell, I like what he brought to Sinners. I like the actor. I haven't seen anything else he's been in. So obviously when I saw him, I said, oh, well, this is good. I like to see what this role is going to be about. I saw that he did an interview earlier this year where he was talking about Sinners, and then they asked him other stuff he was working on. And he mentioned he's playing a character in this movie. It is a completely different character, very disturbing. And it was quite an experience because it's a totally different type of thing with this character. So I didn't really know what he meant, because when I saw the character, I'm obviously, as a viewer, being introduced to the younger version. I'm like, I wanted to know who is this kid now when they did the whole time jump to the present time. So obviously I was curious to see when they revealed that was him. I said, oh, very interesting. And then the movie came to an end. So I'm like, oh, well, I want to see where they're going with this. But that is very interesting to know that was considered to be the very divisive, because I thought that the divisive thing about this movie is that some people didn't like the emotional stuff that happened with the mother and the son. So this is what they had an issue with. So this is good to know, because I will say this, and then I'll go back to you. As I mentioned to you, when I left the movie, there were some people that was asking for a refund. And I'm like, well, I don't think in the movie, I was surprised to hear that, because I was like, well, why? I mean, like as if they like this is the first time they've seen a movie like this, because maybe they didn't see the first two movies. So I don't know, but maybe it has something to do with that too. I don't know. I don't know, but very interesting direction. Now I do have questions about why they are depicting this particular character based off of another character. I want to know where they're going with that and why they felt that they had to go in that direction, because I just assume it's just somebody who has another backstory. They survived, but to know it's based on a real individual, that is, I don't know about that. I don't know how that's going to land.
I was muted.
I know, yeah, I just saw it.
What I find interesting is because you didn't have that perspective of Jimmy. I knew right off, like, hey, was that Jimmy? But you have to understand, I love me some UK culture. This is why I like Gary. Gary's asleep, but hi, Gary. The point that I'm making is this. I found it to be really interesting because Jimmy's crimes are not something that happened over a week or a day. This was something that was for years, decades. Yeah. And he was always doing this in, you would say, in the view of others, whether or not you even knew it was happening. He was doing this in the view of others. And what's interesting with this is the fact that the character Jimmy in the movie has always been in the movie. We just didn't know. The upside down prisoner. Remember the one that's like infected, but he's hanging upside down, and the kid's like, "Where did he come from?" Jimmy's responsible for that.
See, I did not know that. Did not know that.
Mm-hmm. Then there's a whole sequence where, like, there's a graffiti that's randomly on the side of not even a building. What would you call it? A shed, maybe? It's wood.
Yeah, I do remember that.
I don't know anything. Right. Remember, it says, "Behold, Jimmy is coming with the clouds."
Yeah.
it's Jimmy. So it's interesting that he's there, and his full name is Sir Jimmy Crystal, which is weird. And they all have the name of Jimmy, in a way. So they're all replications of him, which is just like, this is some Jim Jones mess, but it goes way further than that. But I found it to be interesting that is what happened. Sorry, I got to find my notes. So I found that to be interesting. And then, of course, the style is very similar to the real Jimmy.
Yeah.
Who was an entertainer. And when he came in, he was bombastic, charismatic. He threw you for a loop. He was confused as all can be. And that's what entertainers do. They take you and they can distract you from whatever it is that you're going through. And the fact that it was children he abused, it wasn't grown adults. So you see him looking at Jimmy and you're like, oh, he's here to save him. Yay, thank you. He's his next prey.
Yes.
And he's young and impressionable and easy to mold. And I'm just sitting there like the pit in my stomach, like, oh my God, this is terrible. And then the upside down crucifixion cross thing that he was wearing, that's basically a symbol of, I may be wrong here, but I believe it's a symbol of the Antichrist. It's definitely the complete opposite of God and godly-like behavior. So he's warning you from right off the bat. And I can't remember. I noticed, of course, that his father gave him, but I can't remember if it was upside down as well. Because his father turned it upside down.
That's a very good observation. I will have to go back and see that. I don't think it was, but I have to go back and see that to double check. Yeah.
So it's fascinating because he's telling you exactly who he is, but he's distracting you with how he's coming and how he's doing it. So I love that aspect of it. It's literally, he's telling you, beware, Antichrist here, but at the same time, I saved you. Kung Fu. Ooh, ha, ooh, ha. So yeah, it's insane. It is absolutely insane. Also, the style of clothes is just hilarious. Because me, it was like, did Remick actually live in Sinners, and then he just experienced the 90s and he loved it so much?
Yeah, so this is what would have happened. This would have happened if he survived. If he survived Sinners and then he came back and Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And then I'm kind of curious if like does Jimmy know about the real Jimmy, and therefore he's modeled himself after the actual real Jimmy? Because that's more disgusting.
Well, that's a great
That's more.
point. Um, I believe we will get some answers to that question in the next movie because they have to expand upon what, because again, we saw this character as a kid. You did not know this is the path he was going to go down from the way they introduced the character.
No.
You did not know they were going to take that path. So I kind of feel like I want to see in that next movie, maybe they expand upon what happened after. They don't need to spend a lot of time showing a flashback, but they can explain a little bit about what happened in between all of that time that passed with him. But yeah, but I also would add that I am, like I mentioned earlier, I'm very curious to see how Cillian Murphy gets involved with this because clearly
He's in the third one.
Yeah, he is in the next one. I would
No,
assume that
third.
he is the third one. I mean, I thought I heard that he's going to definitely be in this next one. I don't know.
I definitely know he's in the third because it does say that it was concluding the chapters centering around Cillian Murphy's gym, which is interesting that his name is Jim.
Oh, yeah, but that's but not Jimmy. It's Jim. So it's a different variation. Different variation. Yeah, I believe he is supposed to be in this other one too. So maybe he's in the last two ones. They haven't filmed the third one yet. I would assume they're going to because this one made a lot of money at the box office. I think it made 60 million the first weekend. The budget I think is like 70 or 75. So yeah, they're going to make all that money. But I don't know if this. I don't know when that other third one's coming out. This second one is coming out in January. I know that. So that's like very, a couple months away, 6 or 7 months away. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy it's not a year. So
yes,
applause for them. But yeah, and I thought, the whole thing itself is really interesting. And, Nina DaCosta did an interview where she did say that the first installment that we're watching now is basically was about family. And I found that, of course, it's about the nature of family and how everything isn't perfect. And she explained her movie, which is the second one, Bone Temple, is about the nature of evil. So I'm scared.
And by the way, if I recall correctly, wasn't the last movie she did the most recent Candyman movie? I believe that's the last one she worked on.
Marvel. Wasn't the Marvels?
Well, she did that too. Yeah, she did that too. But I think the last horror movie was that Candyman movie.
Horror,
I think. Yeah. Very interesting.
So it's very fascinating with her. It'll be very interesting. I'm looking forward to that. So, are there any final thoughts, especially now that you know who Jimmy actually is?
Yeah, I'm still curious. I still am curious to see the next installment. I want to see where they're going with the character. I do want to see Cillian Murphy return and some of these other characters. And of course, we cannot forget that Jamie is obviously still going to be looking for his son. So I expect to see him come back as well. Maybe he is the one that has a violent showdown with the Jimmies. I mean, that's highly likely, I would say, but he is coming back for sure. But no, overall, we'll see. But overall, I thought it was a great movie. And I do want to see where they go from here. Glad that Danny Boyle is back to doing these movies. Really, what they did with the first two movies, they really are the ones that got people interested in these type of zombie movies, at least in this particular sense. They've definitely done a better job than some other stuff that I have seen as of recent. So I got to give them props. So, but yeah, I look forward to seeing where they go from here.
Okay, so that is our thoughts on 28 years later. Gareth Richard cried. I shouted from the heavens how much I love this. And do you have anything that you would like to say that you're working on?
Yeah, I'm still working on some more gaming stuff. Stay tuned for that. Summer Game Fest is not over. It is officially summer started last week. The official summer has started. So there will be a ton of things that I will be working on. Aside from the entertainment side, I'm pretty sure that you're going to be doing a lot more things, Dana. We are going to be covering Dana's favorite TV show, BMF. We will be covering that again soon on our main channel. So if you are a fan of Big Meech and Terry and 50 Cent's shows, I would encourage you to check out when we talk about that on the Koalition main channel. But outside of that, stay tuned. And Dana, I'm pretty sure you have some other things to plug as well.
Yeah, we have Ironheart, Fast. I almost said Fast and Furious. F1. That was interesting. We have Megan 2.0, which I can't say anything about, but we have Megan 2.0. And we have a lot of other things coming. That's going to be really exciting. There's a TV series that I watched that I absolutely hated with every facet of my soul. Please don't give me white savior moments in the middle of slavery. But yes, and we have a lot more other. I do have an interview with Jensen Ackles and Eric Dane, which, you know, he's been in the news. He has the ALS. But yeah, we have a lot more things coming, and just kind of stay forward to that. Make sure you have your notifications. Make sure they are on, so you will get a notification when we have something uploaded. And I'm getting through it. I'm trying. I have bronchitis. Deal with me. Work with me. So yes, that has been kind of everything that we have to say about 28 Years Later. I've been your host, Dana, joined again by Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. Have a great day, afternoon, evening, and we'll see you when we see you. Sound good?